She stepped out the door. I knew what was coming. It should have occurred long ago. For months, she had been aloof, irritated, ambivalent, or hostile. I did nothing to help. We had a few pleasant experiences with pals, which helped to divert us from our sad life. My name is Kurt Randolph, and this is my wife, Sue. At least for a time. I've already consulted with a divorce attorney. After 26 years, the marriage comes to an end. Not a bang, but a whimper. I will inform my son and girls this weekend. I'm not sure where we went wrong. Most of our marriage went well. Not spectacular, but decent. Our children, Glenn, Julia, and Rachel, are all healthy and settled. 2 of us are still in college, and 1 graduated 6 months ago. Which may have contributed to our problems. The empty nest feeling struck hard when our first kid departed for college. She had a significant transformation. No matter how much I suggested, wooed, or begged, nothing improved. Lovemaking vanished from our life, resulting in intense disagreements. Finally, I gave up. Why pursue closeness with someone who does not want it? She recently changed again. And not for the best. Now she's leaving, and it's difficult to be sorry. I know she's going to have a lover. A guy 10 years younger. I observed the shift several months ago and asked around. I work 5,060 hours per week at 3 a.m. in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Working as a manufacturing engineer. It's a terrific work, but it sometimes takes unusual hours. Being on call presented obstacles, such as missing weekend festivities. But the salary is good, and I prefer Aberdeen's small-town atmosphere to big cities. We lived in St. Paul, Minnesota, for a few years. Everyone knows everybody. After a week of questions, my best friend Paul verified my concerns. You were correct, Kurt, he said. He informed me Sue had been having lunch with a guy every week for at least 3 months. Carol, a co-worker and Paul's cousin, spotted them. Sue works as an administrative assistant for Midstate Printing Company. She's been there for 15 years. At 48, she still looks wonderful, which most likely drew David Perkins, a Heartland paper mill salesperson. He is divorced with 2 children and cheated on his wife. I doubt Sue is his only sufferer. Sue left for a spa weekend, ostensibly alone, to alleviate our stress. I knew she was going to meet him 2 weeks ago. She took the day off to be with him. I followed her to the Holiday Inn and spotted them together. That is when I contacted my divorce attorney. She will receive the summons during her resort weekend. I merely need to call when the GPS tracker reveals she has arrived at her location. Some may argue I should have challenged her. But after 3 years of no intimacy, you wonder if it's worth it. Maybe we'll be happier apart. For her sake, I hope so. I've always been someone who can find happiness in any scenario. Why dwell on the negative when there are so many positive things happening every day? So I sit here with my phone, following her progress toward her destiny. I'm delighted and nervous about traveling to Sioux Falls to spend the next 2 nights with David. My buddy and lover. He understands me and listens without passing judgment or attempting to resolve my concerns. He makes no demands from me. Unlike my husband, Kurt, there is no pressure, expectation, moaning, or pleading. Kurt simply doesn't get it. As my life changes, I no longer want or need to make love like I did in my 20s. I need someone who will listen and accept me for who I am. And David has been that person for the last 3 months. We began going out for lunch and talking. He made me feel special, like more than just a mother or an administrative assistant. 2 weeks ago, he asked if I may leave for the afternoon. He had been hinting at a relationship by mentioning how much he enjoys pampering women. The attention and yearning of someone 10 years younger made me question. I agreed to take Thursday off and he reserved a hotel at the Holiday Inn. I was nervous, but I knew he cared about me. When I came, we spoke for a while. He complimented me, saying, "Sue, you always look great. I'm not sure how your boss gets any work done." I flushed and giggled. Then he kissed me. Kurt hadn't done this in years. Minutes later, we were in bed. I wanted to be home before Kurt, so I bathed and dressed quickly. "Do you think we could get away for the weekend?" David asked. "I can rent a riverside inn near Sioux Falls. We may enjoy the vista, nature, and one another. The fall foliage is peaking. That sounds lovely, but I'm not sure what to tell my spouse. Tell him you are going on a spa weekend. Is he truly such a bad person that he would deny you a small vacation? I am not sure if he would notice, I said, reflecting on our deteriorating connection. Okay, I will schedule it for 2 weeks, starting on Friday. That sounds fantastic, David. I told you that I enjoy spending time with you, he responded. I left believing we'd meet again in a few weeks. I drove home and arrived around the regular hour. Kurt wasn't present. He always works late. I felt slightly guilty as I walked through the door. This was our joint home. I noticed a family photograph above the fireplace and our wedding pictures on the mantel. I paused and wondered, what have I done? Our connection is not fantastic, but is that a reason to leave him? I can't do anything to raise his suspicions. I changed into jeans and a t-shirt before going to the kitchen to prepare one of his favorite dinners, stuffed pork chops with mashed potatoes. I recall that day well. It was the last nail in our marriage, his coffin. She stayed in her hotel room for more than 3 hours. I understood what they were doing, and it hurt my heart. We hadn't been close in over 3 years. She didn't want to kiss me any longer, saying, "It always makes you want one thing." I rarely received brief kisses, let alone hugs. After watching her exit the motel, I drove about not wanting to go home in my current emotional state. At 8 p.m., I pulled into our garage and sat for a minute. She opened the door from the kitchen into the garage. As I was getting out, "What were you doing? Didn't you just pull in a few minutes ago?" she asked. Speaking on the phone, I lied. "I made dinner, but it's getting colder. You'd better call if you're going to be up this late." She spoke irritably. "Sorry, a situation arose at work. I may be staying late more frequently." That was not totally a lie. I simply didn't want to be around her. For the last 2 weeks, I'd been going home late at night and on weekends to conduct yard maintenance and prepare the house for winter. We were like housemates, but not for long. As soon as she arrived at her destination, I would phone the sheriff, Tom Andrews. Living in a small town allows you to get to know a lot of individuals. Tom and Marcia were pals. We routinely went to one another's houses. I asked Tom a few days ago if he might serve the divorce papers on my wife. He was astonished till I explained. "I am sorry to hear that, Kurt. You and Sue have been together for a long time, yes, but we have not been physically together for 3 years. 3 years? Wow. Now that you mention it, I've seen some friction between you two lately. Half of me wants to hurt her, but the other half thinks there's no use wasting energy on someone who no longer loves you. I apologize, Kurt. When would you like her served? Saturday, I suppose. Friday? She is leaving for a spa weekend. I will know where she is staying by tonight. I'll follow her. Yukon GPS. Sue's GPS arrived at a bed and breakfast. I called Tom. What is up, Kurt? A bit numb. I probably won't get much sleep tonight. Perhaps even less than she did. Kurt, don't beat yourself up. You are doing something about it. Allow the process to run its course. Tom, it's been 26 years. 26 years? Yeah, that's tough. Are you certain you want me to file? We have not felt like a couple in years. This puts everything into perspective. I apologize again, Kurt. Thanks. I gave Tom the address for the bed and breakfast. He stated he will serve the divorce papers late tomorrow morning. My lawyer warned me that without proof, we would most likely have to sue for irreconcilable differences. But I wanted the documents to state. I attempted to file on grounds of infidelity. I decided to wait until tomorrow to phone the kids so they wouldn't inform their mother. These calls would be the most difficult. I had a difficult night and only got 2 hours of sleep. I kept thinking about Sue and this man and how our marriage had gone awry. When we were younger, we couldn't wait to get together. Work was vital, but I was always thinking about returning home to her when the children came along. Our priorities shifted, but we remained a team. She had found another teammate. Our life together is over. This morning, she will be issued with a summons and we will each have our own team, simply on opposite sides of the courtroom. Me with my lawyer, she with hers, battling for what remains of our lives together. I lay on my bed, staring into space, without bothering to undress last night. I should wake up, take a shower, and dress appropriately. After a 3-hour trip from Aberdeen to Sioux Falls, I arrived at the hotel where David waited for me. Despite getting a short snack on the way, it was already a little after 9 o'clock. When I pulled into the driveway, David's presence awaits me, instantly improved my spirits. I was beginning to believe you wouldn't make it. I was terrified Kurt would stop you. He confessed as I got out of the car. He does not have influence over me. I've been counting the days till this for 2 weeks. I comforted him with a smile. David recommended we go to the recently opened ice cream parlor before I got my items from the car, which I happily agreed to. Unlike my connection with Kurt, David wanted more than just sexual intimacy. His gestures and attentiveness suggested a deeper connection. Our stay at the bed and breakfast was excellent, with beautiful views of the river from our room, especially in the autumn light. The next morning I awoke next David, feeling refreshed from a good night's sleep. I glanced at the clock and realized we'd missed breakfast. David, we should get up. Breakfast concludes at 9 o'clock, I reminded him. Let's skip that and resume where we left off last night, he offered with a cheeky grin. If we do that, I'm going to require a refresher, I replied coyly as we enjoyed each other's company. Memories of my time with Kurt flooded my head. The wedding, raising our children, and forthcoming events such as our son's wedding. Despite their attachment to David, they feel guilty. Not directed at me. Later, when a sheriff unexpectedly appeared to serve me court documents, my world was turned upside down. Kurt was described as broken and incapable of communicating. Panic overtook me as I desperately attempted to contact him, only to be met with silence. Leaving David behind, I dashed out, desperate to confront Kurt and make sense of the situation. Along the way home, I was stopped for speeding, which added to my misery. Despite the turmoil, my goal to reach Kurt was unshakable. Tom's voice remained steady over the phone. I've just called. He confirmed that she was with a guy. He undressed on the bed in her robe. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that, I responded, my mind reeling from the news. Are you going to be okay? He asked. What's his concern? Palpable, even over the phone. I do not know, Tom. I'll phone Marcia to come over. I whispered, feeling the weight of the situation bear down on me. I just need to be alone, I explained, needing room to comprehend everything. Okay. I'll talk to you later. He stated it before we hung up. I turned off my phone and sat in peace, thinking about my marriage and the unknown future ahead. An hour and a half later, I realized I needed to tell the kids. How should I break the news? I pondered aloud. When I turned my phone back on, I found multiple voicemails from Sue, which I disregarded for the time being. I called Glenn, my oldest son. Hello, Dad, Glenn responded enthusiastically. Hello, Glenn. How are things doing at your new job? I inquired, hoping to ease into the topic. Great, Dad. I enjoy creating buildings. I'm happy. Listen, I've got some news. I spoke, my voice wavering slightly. Are you okay? He asked with concern in his voice, echoing Tom's bodily response. Yes. Emotionally? No, I confess. What do you mean? Glenn's tone shifted, understanding the gravity of the situation. Glenn, I am divorcing your mother. I spoke bluntly. There was startled stillness on the other end. After a time, he inquired. What did she do? He'd already suspected the truth. She chose someone else over me, I responded. My voice scarcely rose beyond a whisper. Really? How long has it been going on? He inquired, his shock turning to incredulity. I believe it is several months. I responded to the truth of it, setting in further. I am sorry to hear that, Dad, he murmured softly. Yes, I am sorry to tell you, I responded, aware of the weight of my words. What are you planning to do? He inquired, apprehensive, lacing his voice. I filed for divorce this morning. I informed him about my decision. Final. You don't believe you can work it out? He asked. Hopefully. Glenn, what would you do if Janie cheats on you? I countered. Glenn had a steady girlfriend named Janie, and he planned to propose to her on New Year's Eve. I'd kick her out, he responded after a moment of reflection. Please do not call your sisters. I want to tell them myself, I requested. I will not, Dad. I'll call you tonight to discuss this further, he promised. Thank you, Glenn. We will get through this, I responded, attempting to reassure both him and myself. Dad, don't blame Mom for this. That is between her and you. She's still your mother, he said gently. Glenn, I'm not sure how much help I can provide her. I admitted the pain was still fresh. I understand, but you have to try, he urged. Okay, Dad. She's still my mother. Even if I disagree with what she did, I still adore her. He spoke, his voice forceful. I understand, Glenn. I love her, too, but I no longer like her, I confessed. I apologize, Dad. You do not deserve this. He spoke quietly. Take care of yourself, son. I warned him the conversation was coming to an end. You too, Dad, he said. Bye, I said, hanging up and looking into space. My phone rang, and I responded without thinking. Hello? I replied, my voice devoid of passion. There was quiet. Then a voice said, Kurt. Thanks for responding. We need to talk. It was Sue. I finished our talk and turned off my phone. Someday I'd have to talk to her. But not now. I finally contacted Kurt on the phone. His abrupt hang-up left me startled. The unexpected connection, following multiple unanswered voicemails, exacerbated my worry. How could I express my thoughts and feelings in a simple apology? It seems insufficient. I needed to gather my thoughts before engaging in another chat with him. Lost in thought, a sharp alarm from my Yukon shocked me back into the present. Fuel is running low. This was unfamiliar territory for me, as Kurt normally made sure the tank was full. Desperate to solve the problem, I found a nearby gas station. Choosing convenience over brand recognition. Exiting the vehicle with my debit card in hand, I immediately met an unanticipated stumbling block. The gas tank cap is on the other side. After an unsuccessful attempt, I sought help from the unsympathetic clerk inside, who was engaged with a daytime chat show drama. His casual explanation about the gas tank door contrasted sharply with the intense emotions depicted on the television screen. The cashier reprimanded the woman's actions, leaving her feeling defensive. I empathized with her need for approval and understanding. Returning to my task, I discovered additional obstacles when my debit card rejected authorization. Panic overcame me. Was Kurt behind this? Fortunately, an alternative card was successful, albeit with a tinge of suspicion from the cashier. Refueled and back on the road, the weight of my actions weighed hard on my mind as I sought to contact Kurt again, only to be greeted with the impersonal warmth of his voicemail. I wasn't expecting Sue on the other end. I thought it was Glenn. When she called, I checked her GPS. She was halfway back to Aberdeen. I found myself unable to confront her. I packed a few suitcases, then in the living room I noticed a family photo from happier times. Also included is a snapshot from our wedding. Anger overcame me, and I crushed the photo frame, cutting my knuckles in the process. As a final gesture, I left my wedding ring on the mantel before driving away. I planned to stay in a hotel. After checking in, I called Julia, my second child. Hello, Julia. I greeted her. My voice was laden with emotion. Hello, Dad. How are you? She inquired, her voice full of anxiety. Not excellent. We need to talk. What is wrong, Dad? Her tone became more anxious as she inquired. Your mother and I are getting a divorce. I revealed the words that tasted unpleasant in my mouth. I'm sorry to hear this, but it's not surprising. You and Mom have fought a lot. You were not the parents I grew up with, she remarked, her voice full of sadness and despair. It wasn't about you, kids. It was between your mother and me. I clarified, hoping she understood. Have you sought counseling? Her speech conveyed a gleam of hope. It's too late for that, I said. My tone is final. Please think about this, Dad. She urged people to consult with others before making final judgments. I will think about it. I've already informed Glenn. I will call Rachel next. Do not worry, Jules. I will keep you updated. I comforted her. Thank you, Dad. I love you, she said quietly. I adore you, too. I responded before hanging up. After the call ended, I broke down and cried for 10 minutes. 26 years of marriage have passed. Then I gathered myself and contacted Rachel. Hello, Dad. I tried calling you, but your voicemail was full. Rachel spoke as she picked up. Hello, Rachel. I greeted her. Julia called. Are you getting a divorce? She inquired in her voice, stable but concerned. Yes, I have filed. I confirmed. I am not surprised. She noticed that you and Mom had ceased talking about anything but money and housework. Wow, I didn't realize that. I acknowledged that I felt a pinch of guilt. Dad, we know you both love us. But if you don't love each other, you shouldn't stay together solely for us. She recommended wisely. Thanks, Rachel. You made the decision easy. I love you. I told her I was grateful for her understanding. I love you too, Dad. I will always support you. She reassured me. I have to go. I will call you tomorrow, I replied, feeling emotionally drained. I hung up and turned off the phone. I didn't feel like talking to anyone anymore. As I pulled into the driveway, I had a terrible feeling as I spotted Kurt's absence, which was not wholly unexpected, approaching the front door. It is unusual. Unlocked state arouses my suspicions. Perhaps Kurt was inside his car, which was safely parked in the garage. However, my shouts into the empty house bounced back at me, exacerbating the emptiness I felt as I surveyed the familiar but now unnerving surroundings. My gaze rested on the family photo over the fireplace, a reminder of brighter times. But it was the sight of our wedding photograph. Shattered glass and Kurt's abandoned ring among the rubble brought brutal truth crashing down on me. Julia's heartfelt call served as an abrupt interruption. I responded, hoping to remain calm amidst the chaos. Hello, Julia. How are you? I greeted the facade, hesitating. Fine. Why? Her answer was curt, indicating the gravity of her father's comments. My father called me. She let out her voice, carrying the weight of the news. So what did he say? I inquired. I'm bracing for confirmation of my fears. You're getting divorced, she said matter-of-factly. We are not getting divorced. It's simply a misunderstanding, I claimed. But uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my conviction. The topic of divorce sparked a conversation about counseling, which I considered with cautious optimism. However, the mystery surrounding Kurt's whereabouts casts doubt on any conceivable settlement. As I examined our room, the confusion echoed. The turbulence in my mind. Kurt's absence spoke volumes, forcing me to grapple with the reality that our marriage was dangerously balanced. In an effort to gain support, I contacted Glenn and Rachel. Their sentiments ranged from resignation to contempt. Their hesitation to intervene emphasized the gravity of the issue, forcing me to confront the harsh truth of my broken family. Alone in Julia's room, surrounded by the echoes of unanswered calls and unspoken words, I resigned myself to a sleepless night, clutching the sliver of hope provided by Julia's hesitant idea of counseling. I was not hungry, but I hadn't eaten anything all day, so I ordered a pizza. I pondered about what Rachel had said. For the past 3 years, we had not been close. Menopause had produced a number of difficulties. Her doctor suggested hormone medication, but she refused. Even after Rachel was born, she refused to use birth control, so I used rubber bands. Later, I had a vasectomy to avoid having to wear rubbers. When the pizza arrived, I ate it while watching television, which wasn't really interesting. My mind was too preoccupied. I hadn't slept much for 2 weeks and was depressed after the excitement of the day had subsided. I slept deeply till 11 a.m. on Sunday. I took a shower but did not shave while eating leftover pizza. I decided to call my children. They were pleased to hear from me and informed Me that Sue had requested that I phone her. I determined that today was the day. Unless something amazing occurred, I would proceed with the divorce. I called Sue and she answered on the first ring. Kurt, thank you for calling. I'd like to apologize, Sue said. The kids asked me to call you. What do you need? I replied unemotionally. I want to chat. Can we do that? She asked. We're talking now, so chat, I responded. No, I mean face to face. Why don't you come home so we can sit down and talk? Sue proposed. Sure. I need to pick up some items I left behind, I said, hinting at my emotions. Can you come over at 2 o'clock? She inquired, ignoring my response. Sure. Will your boyfriend be gone by then? I continued, twisting the knife. Kurt, I apologize, but there is no one else. I will meet you at 2 o'clock. Sue stated I had hung up. I was wondering whether anyone was there now. I decided to check. I passed by the house and noticed no automobiles in the driveway. But maybe he parked in the garage? I parked on a nearby street and observed for a half hour. Nobody came or went. She was not lying. I went back to the hotel, shaved, dressed in a great suit, and applied aftershave. Let her see what she tossed out. Eventually, he called me. He was brief and unemotional, but he would arrive at 2 o'clock. I needed to get ready. I decided to prepare a lovely dinner so we could talk over it. Then I dressed up well to show him what he was throwing away. I noticed he parked on the street rather than the driveway. As he approached, I noticed he was dressed nicely, unlike his normal weekend t-shirt and trousers. I met him at the door with a concerned grin. Why did you park in the street? Thank you for coming over. I replied uncomfortably. You are welcome. I wasn't sure whether anyone was parked in the garage and needed to get out. He responded, making me irritated. His comment hurt, but I didn't respond. I wanted this meeting to go smoothly. Come inside. I made dinner. Everything is ready. Sit at the table, I invited. I am here to chat, not eat, Kurt stated. Cannot we do both? We may enjoy a lovely supper while addressing our difficulties. I recommended. No, I am not hungry. I have somewhere to go after this, he explained. I knew he was lying, but I didn't pursue it. You cannot cancel a date. Who is she? I immediately regretted it. I do not have a date. In contrast to someone I know. I don't go on dates when married. He shot back, letting me know I had spoiled the meeting. I apologize, Kurt. My emotion seized control. I apologized. Did they take over Friday night and Saturday? He asked pointedly. My God, Kurt, I am so sorry. Please forgive me, I pleaded. I don't believe that will ever happen. He stated. When I stated that, her shoulders dropped. She undoubtedly believed she was vanquished, but I was only getting started. Well, you asked me to speak. Let us chat. I went into the living room and sat in a chair with her across from me on the couch. Okay, Kurt, I sincerely apologize, she said. Are you remorseful for what you did or for being caught? I inquired, wondering which it was. If I were honest, I would say I felt sorry for getting caught. If I hadn't been, I would have continued on. But I was also sad that I had hurt him. I apologize for hurting you. She decided to say something. That does not answer my question, Sue, I responded. Kurt challenged me with penetrating questions, demanding honesty and threatening to end our relationship, and I could see her struggle with the true question. I found myself caught in a web of deception. The truth came out reluctantly, with each revelation permanently damaging the fabric of our marriage. His allegations pierced hard. Each remark was a reminder of the betrayal that had occurred over months of secret meetings and whispered promises. With each disclosure, the distance between us deepened, and the foundation of trust that formerly supported our marriage crumbled under the weight of my misdeeds. Despite my pathetic attempts at reasoning, Kurt's resolve stood firm. His choice to end our marriage dealt a final blow to the broken remains of my aspirations and dreams as Kurt's ultimatum rang throughout the room. I felt the weight of our shared past bear down on me, soiled by lies and regret, but yet tying me to a love I feared I'd lost forever. Following our disagreement, the silence of the empty house engulfed me, a striking reminder of the absence that now defines my life. Tears flowed freely as I battled with the gravity of my errors. The shattered fragments of my life lay around me, like trash in the aftermath of a storm. The ringing phone broke the silence, its shrill tone bringing me back to reality. Julia's concerned voice cut through the cloud of my sadness, providing a lifeline amidst the chaos of my crumbling world. Her remarks, tinged with disappointment and disbelief, reflected the stormy emotions coursing through me as she battled with the enormity of my actions. I was at a loss for words. My humiliation and remorse are too enormous to bear. With each passing moment, the reality of my situation became painfully apparent. The implications of my betrayal were far-reaching, stretching beyond the bounds of my broken marriage. To include the lives of people I cared most about, Julia's decision to come home and be by me in my darkest hour was both a monument to her steadfast love and a sharp reminder of the depth of my failures as a mother and spouse. As I waited for her, my guilt threatened to consume me. Each passing minute was a terrible reminder of the irreparable harm I had inflicted on my family. In the calm of my grief, I hoped for redemption, for a chance to make amends, to repair what I had shattered, and to reclaim the love and trust one had so callously abandoned. I just spoke to Julia. She's returning home from college to attempt to save their marriage. However, it is beyond saving. 3 years of dealing with such conduct drove me away. The fact that she gave another guy what she had denied me was the last straw. I don't typically drink, but I felt like going to the nearest bar. I turned off the phone and exited the motel room. Let them try to find me. I spent a few hours drinking beer. I wasn't inebriated, and I wasn't in pain. I set my phone alarm for 6 o'clock and checked my messages. Sue sent a couple of apologies, and Julia sent 2, both wanting to meet tomorrow. I was not going to work. I needed to meet with a lawyer and resolve some financial difficulties. For now, I was going to sleep it off and hope for no hangover in the morning. The morning provided a bittersweet reminder of the life I previously knew. The familiar aroma of bacon mixed with echoes of laughter and shared experiences that now seemed distant memories. With a sad heart, I confront the difficult task of navigating the ruins of my broken marriage. Calling in sick to work seemed like a necessary sacrifice. A little gesture in my frantic attempt to save what was left of the life I'd made with Kurt. Despite the tiredness that weighed heavily on me, I knew that every second was critical in the effort to reclaim his trust and affection. I'm reaching out to Rachel and Glenn. I left messages loaded with urgency, hoping without hope that they would respond to my call for help in these darkest of hours. However, it was Janie, with her undying loyalty and constant presence, who provided a ray of light despite the pandemonium as we chatted. Her words of encouragement and empathy shone like a beacon of light in the midst of my misery, providing a glimpse of a future in which restoration and forgiveness were still conceivable. With her by my side, I dared to dream that there might yet be a way to mend the shattered shards of my broken heart and restore the life I had lost. After waking up and calling in sick to work, I approached the day with purpose. Despite a lingering headache, I was able to do several crucial activities such as opening a separate bank account, settling credit card debts, and organizing cash, which gave me a sense of control amidst the turmoil. Julia's eagerness to meet threw me off surprise. Her urge to intervene in our marital turmoil pulled at my heartstrings. Over lunch, we discussed the intricacies of love and commitment, with Julia providing insights beyond her years. Later, talking with my lawyer brought some confidence. Though the imminent divorce loomed big, the legal ramifications of Sue's infidelity weighed heavily on my mind, pushing me to consider the path ahead. The next day at work, Eric's astute assessment of my mood led an unexpected disclosure regarding my marital problems. Sharing the sad reality with a friend felt like a weight was lifted, even if it was a somber acknowledgement of an irrevocably destroyed marriage. As the day progressed, Thoughts of Sue's deception ignited a boiling wrath inside me. Channeling my rage into a strenuous workout provided brief relief. The agony of betrayal hung like a cloud over lunch with Eric. I revealed the incriminating details of Sue's affair. The discovery placed a shadow over our discussion. Despite the turbulence, I found peace in the simple act of sharing a meal with a friend, if only for a brief respite from the storm roaring within. Despite my churning emotions, I was able to remain focused at work. When I got home to an empty house, the solitude exacerbated my emotions of loneliness while I carried out mundane duties like laundry. The ringing phone interrupted my thoughts, with Janie on the line, concerned about Kurt's reaction to her request for forgiveness. I feel horrible for involving her, I reassured Janie, explaining Kurt's behavior as typical male stubbornness at work. My supervisor observed my distraction and offered assistance while pressing me to retain my normal dependability. Determined to put aside personal issues, I immersed myself into work, seeking solace in the regular routine. Thursday brought about an uncomfortable interaction with David. His reproachful demeanor took me off guard. Despite my efforts to salvage our lunch encounter, David's furious outburst left me disturbed. Reflecting on the incident, I decided to concentrate exclusively on work, blocking all distractions and regrets. Rachel's call later that night caused even more distress. Her disappointment and censure pierced my shields, leaving me feeling increasingly alone and desperate. I struggled with the enormity of my mistake. Over the weekend, the thought of saving my marriage became increasingly overwhelming. Nostalgia gripped me as I reflected on happier times with my family. With Thanksgiving coming, I embraced the chance to reconnect my children in the hopes of regaining some sense of togetherness. With their reluctant consent and Janie's help, I was on a quest to plan a spectacular supper. Amidst the turbulence of my split marriage, I received a call from a private investigator. He stated that my wife had met the guy for lunch, but it did not stay long. They argued and she left. It won't change much in the long run, but it did make me feel better. Perhaps she deeply regretted her decision. I spent the weekend looking for an apartment and discovered a suitable two-bedroom on Sunday. Sue invited me to join her for Thanksgiving dinner at our house. I threw it away. The only thing I was grateful for this year was the decision to end our marriage. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved into my apartment, purchased furnishings from Craigslist, and established a new home. Rachel called and said her mom had urged her to invite me to Thanksgiving, but she understood when I declined. Glenn understood, but Julia begged me to reconsider. I still said no. Janie did not call, which was reassuring. After work on the Monday before Thanksgiving, I noticed Sue's Yukon parked next to mine. She stepped out as I approached, looking well-dressed. "What do you want?" I asked harshly. I never received a response to the Thanksgiving invitation. "I'd like it if you came." "As would the kids," she remarked. I tossed it away the same day I received it. I responded coldly. "I hope you change your mind for the sake of the family," she said, begging. I had told the kids no. "Why not invite your lover instead? He won't visit his ex-wife because she's remarried. Perhaps he'll go see one of his other women. You know, he has 3 siblings. 2 of them are married." I responded, studying her reaction. Her astonished expression indicated me she was unaware of the other women. The money spent on the private investigator was worthwhile. "I heard you got into a fight when you saw him for lunch. He did not tell you about his other ladies, did he?" I pressed. "Kurt, could we just forget about it?" "I won't do it again," she pleaded. "I'm not returning to a loveless marriage." "Get a lawyer to sign the paperwork," I replied strongly. "I'm confident that we can return to the previous situation," she said with despair in her voice. "It's over, Sue." "Find a lawyer," I reiterated. I got into my car and drove away while she waited. There, Sue's Yukon was parked next to my car again. She walked out plainly angry. "You're a vindictive idiot," she spit. "What?" "I'm not spoiling Christmas for anyone. The children can see us independently," I replied defensively. "I'm referring to the families of folks I work with." you persuaded your company to shun business with me, cutting hours to 32 per week. How could you? She demanded. I did not do it. Perhaps your acts have consequences. Perhaps. You should have considered how they will affect others. I mentioned my tone. Harsh. Screw you, she shouted. No, thank you no more, I yelled back. I got into my car and drove off. She was outraged, but a smile spread across my face. I felt a little bad in front of her co-workers, but maybe that was what she needed to realize her faults. He drove away. And nothing was resolved. I wish we'd talked about it. I cried the entire drive home in the Yukon. On Tuesday, my supervisor was on edge. He had a meeting with the president and vice president, which did not sound favorable. Following the discussion, he announced a required plant meeting at 2 o'clock in the lunchroom. The president informed us that we would get Friday off in addition to Thanksgiving, which made everyone delighted. But then he told us that we'd be off every Friday owing to the loss of a large client, limiting us to 32 hours per week. The mood became dark. Back at my desk, my supervisor inquired, "Do you know what's going on at 3 a.m.? Nothing, as far as I know, I responded. We lost the account, which represented the majority of our sales. We need to get it back, find new consumers, or downsize. He explained that everyone is currently working 32 hours. Kurt did it out of spite. There are dozens of families affected, and it is a month before Christmas. I spoke, sensing the gravity of the situation. As the day finished, I overheard co-workers blaming me. It is entirely Sue's fault. She botched up. And now we're paying for it, one person remarked. Did everybody know? People looked at me coldly. As I exited, I overheard co-workers calling me a cow and a strumpet. I needed to talk to Kurt. I drove to his workplace and waited near his car. He was gone again. I was very irritated. Maybe it was a good thing we were getting divorced. How could I put matters right? The rumors at work would only worsen. I drove home to my empty house and began baking pies to take my mind off things. I like baking for my family. I hope the kids had a good Thanksgiving despite their father's absence. I was called into my boss's office. Sue, I was advised that you might know why we missed the 3 a.m. account, he remarked, staring at me carefully. I looked down, realizing it was my fault. My husband denies any involvement, but I am certain it is vengeance, something I did. I confessed. What have you done? He inquired, even though he already knew. I revealed that I was disloyal to David Perkins. Why? He inquired, apparently dissatisfied. I am not getting younger. When a younger man expressed interest, I felt desirable. I explained. Unfortunately, such desire could cost us our jobs. He responded sternly. I apologize. I've apologized more this month than ever before. I spoke, feeling the weight of my deeds. Rumors are already spreading. You will have a difficult time, but I will not penalize you for it. Just perform your job properly, he concluded. Thank you. I'll attempt to repair it. I promised it would help, he added. At least I kept my job. As I neared my desk, I felt scornful. There are eyes on me. I pushed harder than ever to establish myself. At 11 o'clock, David called. I cannot believe you accomplished it, he said fiercely. What happened? I asked, perplexed. Your husband retaliated. 3 a.m. They dropped us as a supplier and printer. We've reduced our weekly work hours to 32. He claimed, you'll probably drop us too. I wish I hadn't met you, I confessed, regretting everything. You're the one hitting on married women. I understand you have at least 3 others. 2 of them got married. He shot back. Who told you this? He asked. Surprised? My husband? I responded. So we mailed letters to their husbands. He's taking his rage out on me. All of you women are cows. I wish I hadn't met you. If I don't lose my job, they will assign me the worst zone. He reacted angrily. I hung up. I regret ever meeting David. The consequences were negative. For everyone. As I approached the flat, its emptiness reflected the absence in my heart. Sue's betrayal weighed hard on my thoughts, and I suspected Eric was involved. Though I intended to confront him. As I sat down to a lonely microwave dinner, I could feel his presence in the turmoil. Thanksgiving loomed ahead, devoid of its traditional warmth and family gatherings. Contemplating spending the Thanksgiving alone. The possibility of joining other lonely souls at Pizza Ranch presented a bittersweet option. Wednesday at work brought a meeting with Eric, whose deliberate tactics exposed a darker side. His vicious quest of revenge left me startled as I saw the magnitude of his betrayal. Despite my disbelief, I felt a bitter satisfaction as I reflected on the implications of his actions. With Thanksgiving coming, I contacted my children and extended an invitation to dinner. With the caveat that Sue not learn of my new residence. Their response remained unclear, mirroring the uncertainty of my broken marriage and destroyed dreams. I awoke early, a combination of restless sleep and Thanksgiving preparations propelling me out of bed with a glimmer of hope. I occupied myself with cooking, but deep down I doubted Kurt would join us. As the youngsters gathered around noon, excitement mixed with disappointment at their father's absence. Julia's hope prompted her to contact Kurt again, but the similar tone of their chat confirmed my concerns. He would not be joining us and has resigned. I encouraged the family to sit down and enjoy the lunch together. Midway through dinner, the unsaid tension spilled into conversation. Julia's request for forgiveness collided with Glenn's rage. Each perspective reflects the complexities of our fragmented family. Their queries ripped through me, revealing the naked reality of my conduct. Struggling to express my anguish and remorse, I admitted to my breach in fidelity, the revelation lingering in the air. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to disappointment as they dealt with the broken picture of our once strong family unit. Janie's surprise defense of forgiveness sparked a heated debate, revealing hidden tensions within the family. Amidst the chaos, I tried to calm the situation by emphasizing gratitude for the present time. As the conversation ended, I observed a short glance between Glenn and Janie. Despite the schisms that are separating us, we had a silent exchange filled with implicit understanding. I hoped that love and forgiveness would guide us through the tumultuous rivers of reconciliation. The children stopped by after spending time with Sue. I was pleased to see them, yet there was tension. I didn't name their mother. We discussed education and Glenn's new job. They were now grown-ups with their own lives. And they were leaving. Glenn replied gently, "Daddy, I need to talk to you. I will call you tomorrow." I nodded, curious what it was about. I spent the remainder of the day watching soccer and remembering about previous Thanksgivings. On Friday, Glenn called his father. Glenn began. "Hello, son. How are you?" I asked. "Dad, I think I should break up with Janie," Glenn stated. "What? Why? You've had feelings for her since you first met?" I said, surprised. "Dad, yesterday's chat at Mom's regarding your divorce reminded me that just because your mother and I couldn't last does not mean you should give up hope." Glenn spoke, seeming conflicted. Janie continued, telling Dad, "You should just forgive Mom. She hinted that if she cheated on me, I should also forgive her." I inquired if she would cheat. She responded, "I don't think so, but I can't predict the future." That attitude startled me. Glenn explained, "I believe you two need premarital counseling. You must be on the same page about this," I recommended. "I don't want to discuss marriage until I have that guarantee," Glenn added. "I understand. Consider premarital therapy," I urged. "Thank you, Dad. I will," Glenn responded. I hung up, thinking about Glenn's dilemma. He had to make his own decision, but I was disturbed about Janie's attitude, which implied that he would cheat on Glenn and expect forgiveness. My attorney called. Sue has engaged an attorney and is seeking counseling to attempt to salvage her marriage. The judge is likely to order it, so get it done soon. He informed me in the psychologist's office. I hope the counselor would quickly realize the marriage was irreparable. The woman counselor questioned, "Why do you want a divorce?" "We are alienated, and the damage cannot be mended," I responded. "What do you think the harm is?" she asked. "Trust. I do not think I can trust her again," I said. "Communication. We haven't talked for years." I added, "Love. I've lost my affection for her." I admitted to commitment and loyalty. She had devoted herself to another man, I concluded. "What caused this?" she asked. "What was the underlying cause?" "It began when she rejected my affection and closeness. She cut me off," I stated. "Sue, do you want to respond?" the counselor inquired. "I still adore Kurt." Sue admitted that the last few years had not been fantastic. "Why?" the counselor inquired. "I've lost interest in lovemaking. It wasn't anything I needed or wanted. It was physiological." "Did you enter menopause?" the counselor inquired. "Yes, I had no desire," Sue admitted. "Have you spoken with your doctor? Did they prescribe HRT?" the counselor inquired. Sue said she didn't want to take medication. "Why?" the counselor inquired. "I don't enjoy putting chemicals into my body," Sue responded. "So you discussed it with Kurt?" the counselor inquired. "Yes, he did not understand. He simply wanted one thing," Sue explained. "Kurt, did she express her concerns?" the counselor inquired. "Yes, and I informed her there were other options than simply saying no," I said. "Like what?" she asked. "I did my best, but she dismissed me," I explained. "So the combat began about this time?" the counselor inquired. "Yes, she would not even attempt," I remarked. "How did that make you feel?" the counselor inquired. "She no longer loved or wanted me, and she had lost interest in our relationship." "Sue, you said you loved Kurt. Why were you unwilling to meet his needs?" the counselor inquired. "I was not interested. His persuasion, prodding, and begging made me bitter." Sue stated that physical intimacy is a typical component of marriage. The counselor remarked, "That is not love. Love encompasses more than that." Sue responded, "Yes, love encompasses more than that." However, the counselor explained that connection is an important aspect of any relationship. "Kurt, what was going through your mind during all of this?" she asked. After a few months of no connection, I stopped initiating and instead waited for her. I hoped that special occasions would foster connection. However, they didn't. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, birthdays, and anniversaries. Nothing. Finally, I shut down. Our interactions grew less emotional and more businesslike. We became more like roommates, I explained. "What are your thoughts about that?" the counselor inquired. The following week, I decided to consult a lawyer. I described my circumstances and informed him I wanted to fight for a divorce. He told me that we could at least seek court-ordered marriage counseling. As I departed, I felt better about my future. Whether we stay married or not, I will be able to make my point and be heard. Kurt agreed to visit a marriage counselor. We are meeting today. Hopefully, we can resolve our concerns. I realize that won't happen in one session, but maybe we can figure it out over time. I wasn't sure what to say. Kurt made me appear cold and heartless. I could not believe he saw every occurrence as an opportunity for connection. It was not crucial to me. So why should it be with him? I realized he assumed my physical rejection meant I rejected him and his affection. I had a different feeling. "That does not imply I have ceased loving you," I told him. "Crap, Sue." Kurt commented, "You haven't shown love in years. You gave another man something you denied me. How does that reflect love? You did not despise me, but you did not care about me. I no longer care about you. I'll meet someone who makes me happy and who I can make happy. Someone who will show me love every day, including physical intimacy. That is the type of woman I will look for after the divorce is official." Kurt got up and walked out. After that, the counselor and I spoke, but I was not interested. Kurt no longer needed me. He preferred someone else because he was dissatisfied with me. I had harmed him deeply. I did not have fun with him, but I did with a younger man. In the animal kingdom, the younger male replaces the elder male. Kurt was not vanquished. He was recently replaced. I returned home to an empty house. I didn't feel like cooking. So I ordered Domino's while I waited. I thought on the last few years. I finally understand everything. Kurt had tried to show me his affection, but I had declined. It was about intimacy, both physical and emotional. The doorbell rang. The driver, an older man, appeared familiar. "Susan Randolph?" he asked. "Yes, I assumed it was you." "Thanks so much." "What?" I asked. "You botched up. We all suffer. I'm doing this lousy job to make up the difference." "Enjoy your pizza," he murmured with a strange expression. I closed the door and stared at the pizza box. Had he done anything to my pizza? I tossed it in the trash. Because my hours at work were reduced. I've received hostile stares and comments from co-workers. Being there was uncomfortable, but that was my fault. I deserved it. The meeting did not go as planned, but at least I made my point. This can result in extra counseling sessions. Back at the apartment, I sat alone, feeling sorry for myself. I'd remain alone until the divorce was finalized. But then I'd meet someone who makes me happy, and vice versa. While I was languishing, the phone rang. I assumed it was Sue phoning to complain about counseling. But it was Glenn. "Hello, Glenn. How's it going?" I asked. "Hello, Dad," he said bluntly. "What is wrong?" I inquired, thinking something was off. "We're done, Dad. Jamie and I have broken up," Glenn stated. "No, that cannot be. You love her so much," I said, surprised. We had been battling since Thanksgiving. She believes I'm ridiculous for expecting her to vow not to cheat. "I can't marry with these uncertainties," Glenn explained. "Damn, Sue. I believed you had damaged not only our marriage, but also our son's future marriage. I apologize, son. I'm sure you love her. You will meet someone who is completely devoted to you," I said, attempting to console him. "Thanks, Dad. I hope you find someone like that, too," Glenn responded. Later, my attorney called. Sue's attorney suggested ending counseling and signing the divorce paperwork. If we adjust the division to 50/50ths and the cause is irreconcilable conflicts. He replied, "I refuse. She will not hide her dishonesty. Remind her attorney that we have a photo and a court representative statement indicating she was in A, B, and B with another male. I will agree to a 50/50ths divide. If she accepts, I will discuss it with her lawyer," he said as I sat alone. The relentless drone of the television provides little relief. Julia's call broke through the boredom. Initially hesitant to respond, I braced myself for the anticipated torrent of terrible news. Glenn and Jamie split came as a surprise to me, serving as a vivid reminder of the consequences of my actions. As Julia described Glenn's suspicions of infidelity and his insistence on a prenuptial agreement, a terrible feeling formed in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't ignore the shame that was coursing through me, knowing that my own marital problems had unintentionally influenced my son's perspective on love and trust. With a sad heart, I acknowledged defeat, realizing Glenn's tenacity mirrored his father's. Resigned to the harsh reality, I urged my lawyer to seek a quick conclusion, settling for a 50/50th split and wanting to cut ties with this place that now felt like a jail of judgment. Kurt's hesitation to accept the phrase caused a mix of annoyance and comfort in me. While the threat of David's attack loomed large, I couldn't help but entertain fleeting notions of Kurt's involvement or the angry deeds of other disgruntled husbands. The desolation of my empty house weighed heavily on my mind, inspiring thoughts of a new beginning elsewhere. As I wrestled with the haunting echoes of my mistakes, a greater clarity dawned on me. Accepting David's dinner invitation was the spark for my demise, a rash action motivated by false illusions of camaraderie and validation. In that moment of reckoning, I couldn't help but worry if another Woman experiencing marital disappointment would make the same fateful decision, oblivious to the approaching consequences. If she had known the consequences of her conduct, she might have made a different decision. Sue accepted the offer. Now we just had to wait for our turn in front of the judge. We agreed on everything beforehand, so it should go swiftly. I reflect on the years we spent together, and I'm still outraged at what she did to us. Our entire family will be different now. I wonder if we'll ever be able to have a heart-to-heart talk to her. Here's the next story. My wife felt cheating was enjoyable. She came back to me, pleading for help. I toss mail at my wife, a 27-year-old female. I've been married to each other for 4 years. We believe ourselves to have married relatively young, or at least she was rather young. But it felt right for both of us at the moment. We dated for about a year and a few months. And that was plenty for us. We knew we were meant to be, despite some recent advancements. I'm not sure if we actually were. I have a pretty good job. My brothers and I own a jewelry business. Together, we built it from the ground up, and we've grown it to be highly profitable. Which is always an accomplishment. I know people think doing business with family is difficult. But for us, it's been a dream. We've never been the type of siblings who continually disagree with each other. Your mileage may vary. On the other hand, my wife built a cute cafe where people could get pastries, sip coffee, and read books. She's always been a bookworm and is one of those persons that proudly declares that reading is part of their nature. Before I met her, those folks irritated me to no end. However, I am a hypocrite. Bite me. To be honest, I was quite taken by the concept because I was attempting to assist her. So I've done her a favor by helping her pay the rent for the cafe space. It's expensive because it's in a more upscale neighborhood, but the business is becoming successful, at least without rent to worry about. That was enough to bring a smile to my face. Now, I believe that is the background you require. This is where the true story begins. I can't recall exactly when she approached me to inform me about this new man who had appeared at the cafe. I believe it was around March. She thought he was really gorgeous. I was a queer person, and I discovered that the two of us can objectively discuss someone's appearance without making it a big deal. However, there was something unusual about the way she continued talking about this guy. Supposedly, he appeared to be the type of masculine hero that she reads about in the smut that ladies enjoy reading. Yes, she enjoys these types of literature as well as our book chat type women seem to be. And I'll never understand why, because it appears to be the cheesiest form of romanticism that gets them going. She continued on about this guy for a while before it ended, but I have to confess that the terms she used to describe him were remarkably identical to how she described the icy Russian hitman who fell for a woman in their apartment building's laundry room. No, I did not make that up. That is from a book she is interested in. That was the end of the day, but she informed me that he returned the next day, and they had a lengthy conversation. According to her, he was from Serbia and used to work as a car salesman, but he decided to move to the United States in pursuit of a better life. It took him some time to regain his footing and find his bearings. But he was hunting for work in local dealerships because that was what he was excellent at. I realized in about 10 minutes that he was tall, blonde, gorgeous, well-dressed, and spoke with an evident accent. He apparently enjoyed reading literature about the Wild West and fantasy such as The Lord of the Rings. She regularly informs me about her cafe's customers, so this wasn't unusual. But once again, there was a lot of flowery language involved, and it appeared like she was nearly fetishizing him. He wasn't novel to her anymore, so she stopped talking about him in detail, but it was evident that he was still a regular at her cafe, and it made me feel a lot better knowing that he didn't seem to be worthy of extended spiels every evening. I even stopped by her cafe one afternoon to bring her lunch and noticed a guy sitting in the corner who suited the identical description. I was certain it was him, and he was undeniably attractive. She said his name was Ivan. At this point, things begin to get a little wild. One night she returned home with a silly look on her face, so I asked her what was up. She stated That Ivan had walked her home, and they had chatted a lot about literature on the way back. She admitted that he invited her out on a date, but she told him she was married and couldn't do it. She claimed he was very sorry, touched my hand affectionately, said good night, and departed. I recall asking her why she was smiling so big, and she said, "It's like something out of a book." I will not lie, that paragraph annoyed me since it seemed like she was romanticizing every connection she had with Ivan, and I knew that because he was a regular at her cafe. They would almost certainly continue to communicate on a daily basis. I didn't want to appear insecure, and she could have informed him that she didn't have a man. So, again, I thought there was no need to discuss things, even though I had certain feelings about them. It was just my sentiments that I needed to get over. It became clear to me that this was not the case when my wife returned home about a week later with a bouquet of flowers, which she instantly placed in a vase. She said it was a gift from Ivan. Nothing extraordinary. He stated he bought a lot for a coworker, he now has a job. It was her birthday, and he felt it would be great to get me some because he knows how hard I work. I felt my head heat up as she said it because she was attempting to describe the situation as if she were a schoolgirl who didn't understand when someone liked her. I asked her straight up whether she could tell I didn't really like her. She claimed it was clear, particularly after he asked her out, but she assumed that the flowers were merely a polite gesture. And that puzzled me since as a guy, you usually don't get flowers for a female who rejected you, even though she was married, as a polite gesture, he continued to try to get inside her pants. Or maybe you're just trying to get into her pants and leave the rest of the lovey-dovey stuff out. He was having an easy time making approaches, so I knew he wasn't going to stop any time soon. I was correct. 2 days later, my wife returned home later than normal. I believe it was over 2 hours later, and she had not informed me that she would be late. It wasn't the first time she had come home late, so we called her twice and didn't get a response before opting to wait. But before I could call a third time, she arrived at home in a cheerful mood. You won't believe the night I had. That was the first thing she said before going on to explain how she showed Ivan where the museum located. Then they went to buy a slice of American pizza, which he had never tried before but had seen in movies. Then they strolled about, spoke, and ate pizza and other junk. I honestly didn't care, but I let her finish. And when she was done, I asked her if she was attracted to Ivan. She appeared astonished and irritated, saying, of course she wasn't. That the only person she felt drawn to in that way was me. That she was simply attempting to welcome someone who was visiting an unfamiliar nation and had no acquaintances or close relatives to show him around and answer his questions. I wasn't convinced by all of this, so I informed her straight away that she needed to stop meeting Ivan. Yes, that sparked a major argument. Unsurprisingly, she talked about how I was insecure, how there was nothing there, how I should start feeling intimidated, and a whole lot of other stuff. I was furious, but I was able to hold my cool and prevent my rage from erupting. However, I held firm and advised her that she should discontinue any extracurricular activities with Ivan. It was understandable that he came to our cafe because he was a customer. However, things were not expected to escalate beyond that stage. I advised her to consider what she would do in my shoes if a Serbian girl arrived to buy a bracelet, and I started showing her about town and such. According to her, I would understand. But I believe we all know it is a lie, don't we? Long story short, I slept on the couch. There is no shock there. But the good news is that I stopped hearing about Ivan and his drama, which was sufficient for my mental health. Again, I knew she'd be interacting with him at her cafe, but there was only so much that could happen there. And it appeared like nothing was going on because she was returning home at the same time every night, which was fine with me. I grew concerned when I walked into my wife's cafe unexpectedly one afternoon, and she was not there. Neither was I, even though I couldn't be certain he'd be present at the moment. So that didn't mean anything, but her absence did because it was rare. I considered staying around till she returned or asking one of her staff where she had gone. But I opted not to make a big issue out of it. When I was getting back into my car from across the street, I noticed her and Ivan walking up the street, arms intertwined. It took every ounce of my strength not to run across the street, bit the crap out of the guy, and cut her out. But somehow I stayed in the car, watched them walk into the cafe, then drove away. That happened yesterday, and I've been struggling to process it. I wanted to confront her about it as soon as she arrived home, but I believe there is a lot of power in knowing something the other person does not know. You know, it'll help me see through other lies that may be told. Consider the following example. When she returned home, I questioned her about her day, and she described a rather ordinary day with no mention of traveling anywhere. I have no idea where Ivan is. So this is why I am here. Should I address them directly? Or should I try to learn more about their truth before that? I'm leaning toward the latter since I'm starting to suspect that there's something going on under my nose, and confronting her may eliminate all possibilities of discovering the truth. Resolving. Let me know what you think. The words coffee shop seem beautiful. A refuge for bookworms and coffee addicts alike. And then there's Ivan, the Serbian heartthrob. Straight from a romantic novel, tall and gorgeous with a stronger accent than a Russian novel. Who wouldn't be interested by this real-life character? Your wife's impassioned description of Ivan was nearly romantic. I got it. We all have literary crushes. However, witnessing her drool over Ivan as if he were Fabio on the cover of a bodice ripper will not make anyone's blood boil. Especially when she begins comparing him to her smutty novel heroes. Ivan's advances are pleasant and simply a polite gesture. A bouquet of flowers. Right. Because nothing says platonic friendship like passionate flowers from a man who has been rejected. I'm sure Ivan's next nice gesture will be a candlelit supper in a horse-drawn carriage, followed by late-night walks, shared pizza, and giggly museum trips. Ivan appears to be checking off boxes in a rom-com dating montage. Your wife's reaction, including her sparkling eyes, probably didn't alleviate your anxieties, her assurance that there is nothing to worry about. It's like those horror movie sequences where the ignorant character claims it's just the wind right before getting fired. Update 1. Hello, this is the guy who posted about the wife, the cafe, and the Serbian man. Well, I'm back with a major update. Let's chat about it. I discovered a lot. It took some time to muster the guts, but I eventually decided that I had to find out the truth, no matter what the cost. I've never been the type of person to smile at the thought of checking your partner's phone. But in this case, I realized I had to set my moral quandaries aside and get it done. So I did it the first chance I had while she was sleeping. Unsurprisingly, she had Ivan on a messaging app, and they had been chatting a lot. It was WhatsApp, so I could easily convert the entire discussion to a text file and send it to my phone from hers. I made certain to remove the proof. Of course. I browsed through her portfolio and discovered a few photos of them smiling together in public, but nothing really incriminating. I sent those from my phone again. Evidence was removed. It took me approximately 5 minutes to finish everything, and then I returned her phone to its proper place. After that, I completed all of the reading on my phone, which was far less suspicious in case she woke up unexpectedly. And boy, did I witness things that left my head spinning. Here's a transcript of a portion of the conversation that you might find as disturbing as I did. It happened after they were discussing a book that my wife had recommended to him. Let's call my wife Clarice instead of her own name. In a way, the primary characters remind me of ourselves. Clarice? That's exactly what I thought. Following that, the large, mysterious hunk and the artsy girl who is torn between him and her boyfriend exchanged messages. There are a lot of spicy sex scenes. That part especially makes me think of us. I agree. The sex is usually fantastic, but in your case, it's with your husband. A foolish chuckle emoji. Clarice then sent out laugh emojis. Yes, and I believe that's what makes it even more exciting and enjoyable. It feels quite wrong. I've never cheated before, but I don't really regret it. It's wrong. But that's what makes it so appealing. Yep. And I don't want this to end. It drove me mad. It was 2 a.m. and I left the house to go for a stroll because I couldn't follow her at that time. I would have done something crazier. I was fairly certain of it. I feel like I roamed about town aimlessly for 5 hours. Yet when I returned, it was just 3:10 a.m. She was still asleep. Do you know what it's like to discover you're being cheated on? But then you discover out that your wife is mocking you by loving doing everything behind your back. She was essentially delighting in my ignorance of the situation, which was what pushed me over the line. It wasn't like cheating would be forgiven anyway. When I returned, she was still asleep. So I grabbed her phone, skipped to that point in her discussion with Ivan and recorded it. On her phone. I needed to be extremely clear that there was no doctoring going on here. Clarice clearly felt like she was living out one of her silly books, but it was simply disgusting. That I had to be the victim in all of this. She has no idea I'm aware of this, but the divorce is in the works. There is really no other way for this to happen. I also want to see her go down. I also want to see Ivan go down. I'm not sure how I'm going to accomplish it, but I need both of them to hurt, and I need them to be harmed hard. Honestly, anyone in your situation would have done the same reading. That conversation must have felt like getting hit in the gut repeatedly. The whole thing reminds me of us, and the passionate portion show her indulging in the exhilaration of cheating. That is a specific form of betrayal. Congratulations for keeping you're calm and going for a walk. If it had been me, I would have most likely ended up on the evening news. But you handled it like a professional. You even recorded the exchange for proof. Nicely done. You now have the smoking gun. So, divorce is on the horizon. And honestly, that is the greatest option. Clarice plainly believes she is living out a hot romance story, but she is about to face a reality check. I hope Ivan enjoys his time in Fantasyland. You are about to drop a reality bomb on both of them. Update 2. It was completed, and it was magnificent. This concludes the story of Ivan, a Serbian guy, and his book-loving, devious, unfaithful wife, Clarice. They had no idea. They should have been much more concerned about me than they were. Allow me to skip through the dull sections of the story. Clarice went to work one day, and I parked across the street in an Uber. I watched as the process server stepped into the cafe and presented her the divorce papers in a very public manner. That was extremely pleasing. After that, we drove off. I went to work, had a nice day, and by the end there hadn't been a single message or missed call from Clarice, which pleased me. She realized she had been duped, and there was nothing begging was going to suffice. At least that is how I perceived it. That night, she returned back crying, rivers of snot running out her nose. She looked like a complete wreck. I felt a tinge of sadness. Senior likes that. Blame it on the shreds of love that remained. But it did not last long. She continued asking what she had done wrong. Was this Ivan? Was this Ivan? I realized she had no idea how much I knew, and had probably tried to figure it out. If she had leaks in her previous operations, she couldn't figure out what I knew. I wasn't sure whether it was better to tell her I knew about Ivan or not. But at the end I made a pledge. I told her I spotted her and Ivan strolling together that day and had been holding it in, but I didn't tell her anything else. At that moment, she became empowered and began pleading and calling me stupid. She said there was no cause to divorce her over that. Yes, she was wrong to continue meeting him, but there was nothing occurring between them, and I was feeling insecure. I was jealous. She didn't know whether to grovel or insult me, evidently. Finally, I told her to leave my residence, which she did. That's the genuine divorce phase. That aspect was a lot of fun for me. I have far more money than she does, which means I stand to lose a lot more in a divorce. However, this means that there is a lot more money to spend on good lawyers, which I made certain to do. When you get divorced, choose a decent lawyer. I promise you that it is worthwhile. Because not only did I have a lot of photos of the two of them, after I expressed my worries about it, but I also have text exchanges that clearly demonstrated the adultery. Furthermore, my rockstar lawyer was able to identify transactions in our joint account that appeared to be spent on Ivan. He matched the dates on several transactions to the dates in the complete text message transcript in which he thanked her for specific items, and it became evident that she was spending our money on her Serbian lover boy. The lawyer also did an excellent job of presenting her as a gold digger, which I enjoyed watching. She gave it her all, but there was nothing that stood out to me. I am not a perfect guy, but I do not have any weaknesses that would lead to a divorce. By the time the divorce was over, I had all I needed. I kept my house and my car. And because of that notable infidelity, as well as the fact that I had set her up with a money-making company, I was not asked to pay alimony. Lucky judge, she got to keep the car I bought for her. I didn't feel the need to obsess about it, and it was simpler to accept what I got because she didn't leave the divorce completely empty-handed. Now this is my favorite part. It was difficult for me to get back at Ivan. It was quite hard. But one day, when he walked out of the cafe, I followed him down the street and around the corner. I got his attention, introduced myself, and slugged him right in the jaw. It stung like hell, but I busted his lip and knocked him to the ground with it. And he seemed shocked. I wasn't seeking for a fight on the street, but if one came along, I'd take it. I believe he understood he had no moral high ground in this situation because he rose up and departed. It felt nice. I wish I could have done more, but he knew he was messing with a married woman. But it was enough for me, and it was probably as far as I could have gone without facing a felony charge. Then Clarice. You remember the rent I was paying for her? It was due again, and since her cafe was in such a wonderful area of town, it was pricey. It was usually due on May 1st, but she called me at the end of May, crying, saying she needed to pay the cafe rent but didn't have the money. She begged and begged, but I told her she needed to sell the car to pay for it. She called numerous times during the week before I hung up the phone, but I did not answer. Spoiler. When she called and began cursing me out, I discovered she had sold the automobile. She stated it was horrible and I couldn't assist her. At the very least, I informed her that she was terrible for thinking it was pleasant and thrilling to cheat on me. She couldn't respond to that. I'm waiting until May of next year to see how she deals with rent. If the gods have their way, she will also lose the cafe, particularly without access to my bookkeeper any longer. It's been wonderful, honestly. I am newly single with a lot of money and a lot of satisfaction. I'm not going to lie and claim that the divorce, betrayal, and infidelity didn't hurt like hell, but you can only travel forward, correct? That is what I'm going to do. Thank you for sticking around and offering words of support and guidance. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully I'll never have to write another post. I'll see you. Cleary is returning home, weeping and snorting everywhere. Priceless. I can practically imagine her attempting to switch between groveling and calling you stupid. She believed she could turn the arm-in-arm story into a harmless, friendly stroll like, no, honey. He's just my walking buddy. Right? Because it is completely natural. Also, there's the divorce. He played it like a pro, bringing in a renowned lawyer and hammering her with proof. Plus, those transactions correspond to her small love notes. That is courtroom gold. Watching her be branded as a gold digger must have been pure pleasure. In retaining the house, car, and avoiding alimony. That is the jackpot. And Cleary is selling her car to pay the rent. That's simply poetic justice. She calls you evil. Hilarious. She had no legs to stand on. Let's hope she loses the cafe to Carmen next year as a constant companion. So here you are. Newly single, flush with wealth, and a satisfying victory under your belt. It must have been excruciatingly painful, yet you emerged victorious. Congratulations to you. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, write a comment below with your thoughts on what transpired. Take care.